been true. There have been years like 1980 when President Carter had a very poor approval rating and economy much worse than we had now, and the fundamentals couldn't really carry him to a victory. In recent polls this year, you've seen Obama with an approval rating of about 50%. That's a much healthier number. We've had some better jobs reports lately, so I'm not sure there's too much reason really to think the incumbents would break for either candidate in particular.
Right. Now, let's start with your final forecast, which has gotten a lot of attention, as many of your forecasts have recently. You give the president a 90+ chance of winning the election. Now, that is based on a lot of data that you put into the model, but that is not the same as saying that you expect him to win in a landslide election, correct?
No, I mean, of that 90%, most of those are very close elections, maybe a little bit like 2004, maybe a reverse 2000, where the popular vote was tied, or he lost it, but he won the Electoral College. But really, it goes to two things. Number one, that toward the end of the campaign, in the last week, he started to pull ahead a little bit in the national polls, resulting in a discrepancy between the state polls and the national polls.
The national polls recently, up until the last couple of weeks, had shown an advantage for Mitt Romney pretty consistently for a little since the first
small advantage by half a point or a point right after the Denver debate. But Romney, even during that period, never really pulled ahead in states that he would need to win the Electoral College. He's never really been ahead in Ohio all year. There are other states, Virginia just closed its polls, where he's maybe tied in the polls at best. So he has to really run the table as far as avoiding all these states where Obama seems to have an edge in the polls. Maybe the pollsters are off in some of them, but unless there's a pretty clear error across the board, then Obama has a rich Electoral College strategy.
Right. Now, you've had the president improving his odds in the model over the last couple of weeks from 70 to 90. Is that about his polling improving? Is that about time running out for the dynamic to change? Is it about both of those things?
It's both. I mean, it's both the fact that the closer you get to election day, the more reliable the polls are. But there has been an uptick. Where if you looked at the swing state polls over the past 3 or 4 days, last 4 days of the campaign, it was hard to find very many Mitt Romney leads in any swing state. where you'd have 20 polls released the same day. You'd see a couple of ties and like 14 Obama leads and maybe one or two for Romney. And so that speaks to the fact that he has potential problems all over the map, and so he's going to have to really run the gauntlet to avoid losing Ohio. Obama's so-called firewall states are still Ohio, Nevada, and Wisconsin. If he wins those, then he's pretty safe. But you could have something go awry in one of those states, or in Pennsylvania, and Romney would still have to win Virginia, Colorado, and Florida. At least most of those combinations would work for Obama if he wins enough of those states.
Before we go, Nate, what's your Senate forecast for tonight, and what are you watching most closely there?
Well, the Indiana Senate race just closed recently, and that's one of the more interesting ones, where the Republican had seemed to have maybe the slightest edge. He made a series of controversial comments, and that really may have been the nail on the coffin as far as a GOP regaining the Senate potentially. So which side will gain ground, we don't know. We think Republicans might pick up a seat or so on net, but they're playing too much defense in states like Massachusetts now and Indiana to really ensure that they're going to gain enough seats to take over the Senate next year.
So you're still expecting the Democrats to hold control?
Yeah, that's a pretty safe call. We think that's also in the 95% range or so. Safer, really less complicated, I think, than the presidency. These races are more individual than the electoral college.
So that's the prediction. We won't make the calls until later. Thanks, Nate. And now Marcus Mabry is standing by on our news desk with more results. Marcus?
Thanks, Megan. Voter turnout in Massachusetts is expected to be a whopping 72 or 73%. That's because the Senate race is hard fought and incredibly expensive between Elizabeth Warren and Scott Brown. A Senate race that could determine who controls the United States Senate. We have a report now from Kit Seeley